Thank you, Mr. Fleming. Questions. I'll start with Mr. Jones. On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate the CFPB's outreach on the mortgage disclosure forms that they are currently in the process of revising?
Thank you, Chairman Coffman. I would rate them at a 6 or a 7, and especially compared to previous regulatory form changes. I think they really have reached out and provided an opportunity for our members and members of the mortgage lending community to comment on those forms.
Thank you. With your 40 years of mortgage lending experience, can you tell me what happens if an entity is seen by its customers as being abusive?
I think if an entity is seen by its customers as abusive, basically they stop using the lender. I think good businesses in our business and any business have to be close to their customers, and that, I think, is one of the real benefits of being a small business and being located with your customers in the same towns and going to the same meetings and the same social functions, same churches. So it's critical that you have good customer relationships.
Mr. Sharp, we hear frequently that there is a fight between Main Street and Wall Street. However, our economy is interconnected, and we must make sure both are healthy if we want to grow our economy. Can you tell me about the impact that financial regulations will have for Main Street small businesses?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Thanks for the question. As I said in my testimony, I mean, it's hard to know exactly what the impact will be, and I think we heard that from the first panel as well. But again, our concern is that you know, small businesses have the hardest time and the most expensive time, really, complying with new regulations. And as you know, there are a flood of regulations headed their way. And in this case, in particular, obviously, again, our concern is that some companies may be directly regulated who didn't expect to be regulated, as my fellow panelist, Mr. Fleming, has mentioned, and others may find that access to credit lines or to credit instruments that they rely on are either more expensive or unavailable. So there's no way to know for sure what the impact is going to be, but those are the two areas where we're hopeful that there won't be an adverse impact.
Can you tell me how small businesses use the equity in their home to finance small businesses, particularly in the early stages of development?
Sure. I think it's pretty widely accepted that particularly the very smallest businesses, sort of the two guys in a garage, kind of very earliest stage of a small business. And I think if you look at Google or some of the real tech giants these days, you can trace almost all of them back to, again, a couple guys in a garage with either a personal credit card or someone borrowing against their house or borrowing against their car. Now, of course, you grow out of that phase at some point, and you have access to the capital markets, but it's each of those tools, which are not designed to be for commercial lending, have become critical lifelines for small businesses.
Right. Based on your experience in government and observing the CFPB, do you think they are prepared to assume authority, or do you feel that they have been rushed?
Well, a year sounds like a lot of time, but it's really not to stand up a brand new agency, particularly when you have a responsibility to sort of gather up bits of law. I think in 7 other agencies, I think it's 19 statutes that they are consolidating under one roof. So we do have a concern that they're moving awfully fast. We don't, I think on the transfer date they began to issue, the CFPB began to issue interim final rules, which essentially says this is the final rule, but we're going to continue. We're going to take comments and adjust as needed. And in some cases, that's probably good. In some cases, we may have concerns. We're trying to keep up as well. But I don't think a year is enough time for this bureau to have gone active, particularly without a confirmed director. I think that also creates serious challenges for them.
Right. Mr. Fleming, you mentioned compliance costs in your testimony, but can you reiterate how much will it cost for your business to comply with the new data collection requirements?
Well, again, Mr. Chairman, I'm estimating that we could potentially have to add at least a part-time clerk, which for us, as such a small business that's so flat, that's really a significant investment for us for really a position that doesn't add to the bottom line. I'd prefer to spend those funds on, as I said, a mechanic or some equipment that adds to revenue for our customer. You know, we are constantly looking for good qualified diesel technicians to fix our trucks, to keep them out on the road, to help produce revenue for our company. So while, again, I said one part-time position seems small, that'd really be better used in a revenue-generating type position rather than just an administrative burden to comply with potentially new federal regulations.
Do you feel taken advantage of by the banks that you work with? If so, do you just switch banks or providers?
We did switch our banking relationship. I wouldn't say felt taken advantage of, but just didn't feel that it was working for us, and we had a relationship with banks out in Ohio and changed those banking relationships. I think, as other members of the panel said, it's a free market, and there's certainly plenty of other opportunities for us, and we took advantage of other opportunities when they presented themselves.
Thank you. Mr. Levitin, according to the SBA Office of Advocacy, small businesses create 7 out of every 10 jobs in America, yet in a recent article you claim that small businesses' contribution to long-term stable employment is limited. Do you disagree about the importance of small businesses in helping our country recover from 9% unemployment?
No, I do not disagree with that. I'd actually point out that what I said is entirely consistent with the Small Business Administration's Office of the Advocate, that small businesses create a tremendous number of jobs every year, but the general story of small business is unfortunately failure. Most small businesses don't last for more than a couple years. So instead, you just get churning rather than stable long-term employment.
Okay. As a professor, I would assume that you see the value of lawyers drafting contracts and committing agreements to writing. This creates certainty. How can plain language increase certainty in contracts? I can see the value in getting rid of some legalese, but don't contracts require some specific language that cannot always be made into quote-unquote plain language?
It really depends on the specifics here. So, I think the CFPB, I think where your question is going, if I understand it correctly, is how is the CFPB going to help make markets more efficient? And getting rid of unnecessary legalese is certainly something I would think everyone at this table would think is a wonderful thing. That's move one. But as you point out, not everything can be boiled down to legalese. The second part is simply ensuring that when a business goes out, or a consumer, actually, well, really a consumer goes out and compares financial products, they can compare them on an apples-to-apples basis. That's actually very difficult to do right now with many financial products. It's not like going to a grocery store where there's unit pricing and you can see the cost for an ounce of orange juice of brand 1 and an ounce of orange juice of brand 2. Instead, many financial products are designed in a way that they're too complex to compare on an apples-to-apples basis, knowing what the all-in cost will be. The CFPB may be able to improve that by encouraging standardization of financial products to the things that consumers really want.
Thank you, Mr. Altmaier.